It's Friday, and Friday in my world is ruled by Venus and the heart chakra. So that means that I am directing my energy towards all things love, marriage, and connection. And that is what I am going to explore today. So, my name is Gail. I am the energy-led woman. These are my video diaries. I am a self-projected projector by human design, and this is in effect my sounding board. So I come here, I explore, I talk through certain topics every day. And in doing so, I find my own direction, my own truth, make my decisions, all that kind of stuff, to, I suppose, continue the evolution of each one of those life phases, to grow as a person, to become who I'm meant to be, to live out my purpose, live in alignment, all that jazz. Whew! So, I'm finding this process is coming through differently to how I expected it would. So I am feeling like it's a little bit messy. I'm feeling like it's not flowing. No, I feel like it's flowing, but I feel like my head is doubting it because it's not what I expected it to be. So just hang in there with me if you are following me through this process. I really feel like these first few are going to be messy as I tune in, as I kind of get used to just shutting down the mind and really allowing my G center to come through. Because of course, as a self-projected projector, it's all about the connection from my G center, which is my identity, my soul, myself, and kind of like what comes from there out of my throat center, i.e. my voice. That's kind of what it's all about. And I do find, because I know that these are going out on my channel, that people are going to watch them, that sometimes my head steps in and kind of goes, whoa, slow this down, Gail, this is a mess, you shouldn't be doing it like this, whatever. So I'm really focused on kind of allowing that G center to speak through me as I lean into these different topics. And I do spend just a little bit of time just before I actually record these videos, just tuning in to the frequency. So I have just had a Venus frequency playing, and I normally just write a few bullet points of, take a few deep breaths, what comes through me, just write a few bullet points. And I found this topic really difficult, and I've got no bullet points. And I was kind of, come on, Gail, write some bullet points. And nothing was coming through. And I realized that actually, if nothing's coming through, it's actually really important to get on here and actually start speaking and get that vibration moving in my body and start, tuning in. So let's just see where this takes us. Let's just explore. Let's let the frequency flow. And see where it takes us. So, today I open the door to the energy of love, marriage, and connection. Softening, but not losing myself. Connection as a state, not dependency. I open to love while staying rooted in me. Let the frequency flow. So, love, marriage, connection. I think maybe one of the reasons that I'm going to find this kind of tough, not tough, that's not the right word, is that I am reasonably private about my marriage. I've been married now for 22 years. I've been with Matthew for 26 years. I would say we are very happily married. I would say we are very connected. I would say, it's a deep love. It's not just kind of like surface level. And so speaking about that from a place of me telling you about me and doing it as a diary is probably going to be quite difficult because it's a private space for me. There is a boundary around that. It's a private circle. But there are things that come through when I talk about relationships around feminine and masculine energy and that kind of vibe of things. So I'm going to allow that through. I'm going to allow the kind of, I guess that's connection, you know? I guess that's the connection. What's the connection between the feminine and the masculine energy, you know? And what is within that? And how we can kind of, how that comes together, how that energy kind of comes together. And one of the things that really stood out for me a few years ago, and I believe changed a not a dynamic, and it didn't overhaul our whole life, but it allowed us to kind of connect a little bit deeper, was my understanding of feminine and masculine energy. And I think that's a really powerful thing for a woman to understand, because we are brought up in a society that is driven by masculine energy, and everything around our society is really driven, like focused on the woman being like the man. So, for example, a masculine energy is the energy cycle completes in 24 hours with the sun. Comes up and it completes in 24 hours, okay? A feminine energy completes in a 28-day cycle with the moon. So there's two different energies here, but yet our lives are based around the sun and the energy cycle that is a masculine energy cycle. So what I'm trying to say here is, I'm trying to explain how, you know, even looking at a calendar, even looking at a diary, any diary that you pick up nowadays is based on that day cycle. Everything is based around the masculine energy and the idea of, you know, the logic, the kind of problem solving, the goal setting. Everything is in our society is set up around that masculine energy. And the feminine energy has been kind of like suppressed somewhere below it. And women are reclaiming this now, you know. Women are understanding their menstrual cycles more, which links to the moon, which links to the full cycle. You know, we're understanding what the different phases mean as far as, you know, when's our creative phase, when's our problem solving phase, when's our confident phase. Women are understanding that more now. But particularly maybe someone around my age, you know, I remember kind of coming through my teenage years with the ladette culture. You know, the women just wanted to be like the men, you know, drink pints, you know, just everything. And I think there's a real push towards that, you know, in our society. And so for the women to understand and appreciate what feminine energy is and how it works, and allowing that to flow in connection with the masculine energy is actually really, really powerful. So I'll give you an example of just something that kind of works for me as far as a metaphor or a kind of like an understanding of this energy is concerned. But, you know, I've worked with women in the past who, you know, they've struggled in their relationships, and as soon as I tell them this analogy, it kind of clicks in for them somehow, and they're able to kind of see it from a slightly different angle and different perspective. But if you have like two stags, okay, you know, in the woods, okay, in a boundary, in an area, whatever, and when they're in their full intense masculine energy, okay, they are butting heads, you know, their heads down, horns up and antlers up, not horns, and they're bashing into each other, right? Because their energy is like competing rather than collaborating. So rather than flowing together, it's competing. So they're crashing heads, butting heads, that is what sometimes when I'm talking to people, that's how it feels when they're telling me about their marriage and their issues and their problems. And it's like, but you're both butting heads because you're both in masculine energy. And nobody wants to be that person who kind of goes, okay, I'll step back, because we've not been brought up to be that because of the way society is. But there is a real power in the feminine, understanding the feminine energy and allowing that flow to begin. And so if you think about the two different energies, I have kind of like two phrases in mind when I think about these two different energies. The masculine is there to protect and worship, and the feminine is there to nurture and it's gone. To nurture and oh God. Nurture. To nurture and can't think what it is. How flipping annoying. Anyway, to nurture and not worship. Nurture and can't think what it is. My brain's just gone. So sorry, guys. Anyway, but straight away you can see the difference in energy. To nurture and oh, that's really gonna really annoy me. Anyway, when you look at these two energies and you kind of like, as a woman, you decide to step into that feminine energy and allow that nurture to come through. I want to say nurture and nature, it's not. Anyway, you allow that energy to come through. When you allow that energy to come through in situations, that butting heads never happens because it's kind of deflected. And instead of this banging into each other, it becomes this kind of flowing with each other. So, because I can't remember the word, to love and nurture, is it to love and nurture? To love and nurture, to worship and protect, to love and nurture. I honestly can't remember, it's gone. It's usually there right at the top of my mind. Anyway, so that connection is really important. In that feminine masculine connection of energy is really important. Yin and yang, it's always the things that pull it together, right? So I've now lost my track of thought. Today I open the door to the energy of love, marriage and connection. Softening but not losing myself. Connection as a state, not a dependency. So yeah, so when a woman allows the man to be in his masculine and the woman moves into her feminine, everything flows. So when we think about masculine energy, another way of thinking about it is like the river. So the river banks is the masculine. So it's the boundaries, it's the protection, right? It's the holding of the feminine energy. And the feminine energy is just this flow and just this current, and sometimes it can be wild, mad waves, and sometimes it can be really calm. But the masculine energy holds it, contains it. You know, having a man who can contain and hold that energy, that emotion, is quite important. And I'm gonna just reflect on the fact that Yellowstone, Rip, okay, became a bit of a kind of like random kind of like hunky guy for a lot of women. A lot of women are drooling over him and, you know, crushing on him. And I've seen so many posts on this on social media and such like, and you know, in just general kind of like, you know, articles and things, where it's really coming across that one of the reasons that people are crushing on him is not because he is attractive, because he really isn't kind of like, that's not who he's meant to be. He's not meant to be like big, hunky, gorgeous guy. He's kind of raw and rough and ready and kind of cowboyish, right? But the reason that women are crushing on him is because he holds Beth's energy. He allows her to be wild and do whatever it is that she does, but he is like her rock, her containment, you know? When you think about that dynamic and how that sits in relation to your own marriage and your own relationships, it's interesting. And it might show where things are too much in the masculine or imbalanced. Today I open the door to the energy of love. So while there's marriage, relationship, and that feminine masculine connection coming through in my mind as I'm talking through this, there's also this background that when I talk about love isn't just about the marriage, the partnership. Love is very important when it comes to self and self-worth and being able to love who you are as a person, giving yourself love. And when I talk about giving yourself love, I'm talking about things like, you know, loving your body enough to nourish it, loving your body enough to hydrate it and do what it needs and move and flow and release energy and do all that stuff. Love is also about, you know, allowing yourself to expand in love. So a lot of us don't lead with love, you know, and this is actually a really interesting thing that often comes through for me, is that when I'm in kind of like a heightened state, so let's say anger, frustration, something like that, I often say to myself, am I approaching this with love? Am I leading with love in this moment? Because, you know, if you're in a conflict or a confrontation, then the chances are you are leading with something else. You're leading with a different energy. Maybe you're leading with that frustration. Oftentimes, we lead with either love or fear. And when you understand, it's like, if you can kind of like allow yourself to see that you are either coming from love or you're coming from fear, that actually allows you to just take back some power in that moment. Because if you're in a confrontation, for example, oftentimes the confrontation is for fear. It's fear of them misunderstanding you. It's fear of them not liking you anymore. It's fear of not getting your own way. It's usually some kind of fear that's coming through. And when you switch that from a love back into a love energy and lead with love, it changes the whole perspective of the situation. And instead of reacting with fear that they won't understand you, you then lead with love, and it turns into, if you're coming from that place of love anyway, then how can you understand them? Rather than it being a fear of them misunderstanding you, how can you understand them? And it changes the whole perception of everything. So bringing it back to the love of self, self-love, self-care, all that kind of stuff comes through for me on a Friday. Now, Venus is also linked a little bit to beauty and stuff like that, so it makes sense, you know, she's the goddess, all that kind of stuff. It makes sense that there is a focus on self-care today for me, that it kind of comes through in the back of my mind when I'm talking about love. And Fridays feel like, for some reason, a bit of a, you know, a day to reflect on self-care and whether I am acting with love for myself. Am I acting with love for my home? Am I acting with love for my life? Am I acting with love for the money in my bank? Am I acting with love for my job? Am I acting with love for my partner, for my family, my friends? You know, am I acting? Am I leading with love in all those areas? And if not, why not? You know, is it that there's fear? You know, if we're not leading with love in our work, our job, is that because there's a fear that we're not going to be good enough? You know? Is it because we're frightened of losing our job? There's a fear there. Is it because there's a fear of like living the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, hating this, you know? I'm just trying to pick up pieces and try and push them through my G center. Do we love ourselves? When you look in the mirror, do you love yourself? Or do you pull yourself down? Do you rip yourself to shreds? I should be smaller. My arms should be thinner. I've got a big bum. Whatever it might be that comes through, do you love yourself when you look in the mirror? Do you love your life? Do you love what your life is comprised of? Do you love that you get up in the morning and you get to do that before you go to bed? Or is it all a chore? Is it all an effort? Is it all something that you dislike? Why do you dislike it? Are you coming from fear rather than love? I think I've run out of stuff at the moment. So I have brought with me, I like pulling these little cards at the end of these little sessions. It just kind of feels right. So today I am on the Rose Oracle. Rose just felt connected to Venus somehow, you know, the beauty and that kind of thing. So I've got my Rose Oracle. So I'm just going to ask for just some general guidance today. So I'm just going to read my little statement. This statement is likely, every day I'm going to have one of these statements to try and tune myself into the frequency. Now, I work a lot with frequencies. So I wake up in the morning and I have health, wealth and self frequency that I work with. First of all, and then this is just a kind of like an add-on to that, because this is just a wanting to tune into the frequency of each of these different life areas, like I said at the start. So I'm just going to read the statement and see what comes through with the cards. So today I open the door to the energy of love, marriage and connection, softening but not losing myself. Connection is a state, not dependency. And I open to love while staying rooted in me. Give me some guidance. Give me some guidance. I open to love while staying rooted in me. I open to love while staying rooted in me. I open to love. Oh, have we got one? It's not moving. That one. So I open to love while staying rooted in me. These statements, by the way, are statements that I have created through research from the chakras, research into Venus, that kind of thing. So they are all linked up to, they're all linked clearly to that. They're not just random statements that I've made up. Hang on, where's the index? Give me the index. Right, sorry. Okay, so what came out today was the bud. Potential promise, it's about to happen, keep going. Interesting. The bud, page 66. A bud is an embryonic swelling on the stem of the rose that has the potential to develop. A bud is an embryonic swelling on the stem of the rose that has the potential to develop into a flower, leaf, or shoot. In temperate climates, plants form resting buds that are resistant to the brutal frost. The bud is the promise of what's to come. It's the physical manifestation of the seeds that we've been holding deep in the earth, nurturing and dreaming through the fertile void of winter. Now we find ourselves in the inner season of spring, and the bud is beginning to realise what it was always destined to be, but it still requires tending in order to bloom one day soon. This is a card of encouragement, potential, excitement and hope. It invites you to keep facing your true north and show up for what you're being called to create. Your effort has not gone unnoticed. Keep going. Someday soon, you'll begin to see this beautiful creation in the world. The bud is connected with spring, the time when the upward energy of life is bursting on through. You may be seeing the first signs that things are beginning to come together. If you've been working on a project or have been dedicating yourself to ushering in some change in your life, you're being called to keep going and trust that what you've been working towards is happening. Keep tending your garden, and before long the bud will begin to unfold and bloom. Interesting. So I was kind of expecting some guidance linked to what I've been talking about in the video, but I feel like that guidance was linked to my own doubts around these videos and what I'm attempting, leaning into creating here. But I feel like that was kind of like my little bit of, you're on the right path, Gail. Trust it. Allow it to bloom, allow it to grow. So I'm going to leave that here today. If you are interested in my vibe, my take on love, marriage, connection, then there'll be another video here next Friday around this topic. If you're interested in just following my diaries and seeing what I talk about every day, then just, you know, give me a follow or a subscribe or whatever it is that we do on this channel. Yeah, I'll leave it there, guys. I will see you at some point tomorrow.